Hello, 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 and welcome to the Player Development Pod. My name is Ed Jones, and I am the founder of the Beyond the Field program. This podcast here is to bring exposure to the player development field. Thank you so much for spending your time with me here. Today, we continue the series, Head Coach's Guide to Player Development. Today's topic is the impact player development can have on a program. Now, I spoke about this in season 1, and that episode is in the notes. Once again, I spoke about this in detail in season 1, and that episode is in the notes. Before we start, here's some action items for you, the listener. Hey, I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret. The Head Coach's Guide to Player Development. The Head Coach's Guide to Player Development will be released soon, most likely this week. But check out our socials so that you can get your copy of it. This is something to help you head coaches that are listening, anybody that's listening. This is a guide. Once again, this series is about program development. So I want you to get your hands on it, get your copy. It's got space for you to create and all that good stuff, and all that stuff is in there. So go get your copy. If you want premium player development content, click the link below. Right now, I have an episode that goes into detail of every player development interview I've had with the head coach. And then lastly, subscribe, give a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone that you know it will affect. All right, we got a player development pod testimonial. Before we start the show, I want to give a shout out to Dr. John Howe at Temple. Go Owls. This is what he said about the player development pod. Gaining insight from practitioners has helped me when mentoring and interacting with college athletes on campus. Dr. Howe, thank you for listening. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the survey. And I'm excited to connect with you here soon. All right, Player Development Conference. Here's an update. Here's another update. I already told you last week that it's in May. It's in May. The date's coming out soon. But I hit up some speakers this week, y'all. Hey, I'm excited. We got some elite speakers that I can't give it all. I can't give it all away, but we got some elite speakers that are excited about this conference, and I'm excited to get with them and just, man, look, yeah, just keep keep watching. Keep watching. I'll give you more updates, but it is in May. And if you're more interested, if you are as excited as I am about this conference, please join the mailing list. Please join the mailing list. I'm excited. This series is called The Head Coach's Guide to Player Development. Player development's impact can only go as far as the support of the head coach. So head coaches, this series is for you so that you can gain a better understanding of player development. Today, we will talk about the impact player development has on programs. There are three major areas that player development impacts in your program. The players, of course, player development, players, the program and the staff, and number 3, the external relationships of your program. So we'll break down each one of those during this episode. Players, it's all about the players. If you've listened to any of the previous 42 episodes of the Player Development Pod, there is one common denominator, and that is the players. Now, I can't say that players is the root word of the position. I guess I can say, root word, when I learned it was like the middle word, but yeah, let's say that. Let's say it. My English teachers, if you're mad at me, I'm sorry. Player is the root word in player development. It's the greatest word in the position. As many positions in college athletics or athletics at all, this position does not exist without the players. Their impact should be priority number 1 for whoever's in this role. I used to have a sign in my office right above my door, and it would say, I am here for the student athletes. I was looking for the sign. I was going to grab it and pull it out, but I can't find it in my boxes. But I had a huge sign that said, I am here for the student athletes. And that was a reminder to me, but it also was a reminder to the student athletes and staff when they came in. It said clear as day, I am here for the student athletes. And that's what I enjoy. Head coaches, you know that this position impacts players. Your position impacts players. Coaching impacts players. But let's list some of the role's deepest impacts with your players. Number 1 is leadership. Okay, that's a little self-explanatory, but you get leadership. There's another person providing leadership for your student athletes, another avenue for them to see what leading looks like. And that person could actually lead them to their own leadership. I've had the great fortune of working with some incredible student athlete development departments over my time working in player development. There were leadership retreats, leadership workshops, leadership programming that they put on. It was incredible. But I was fortunate to be in that role because I was the person who was able to connect with those student athlete development professionals. Shout out to N4A, shout out, and get our student athletes to them where they can find leadership. This role will help define leadership for your players. Not only what they see in staff members, not only what they see in this role, but it will also help them define their own leadership style and skills. Number two, mentorship. That becomes very organic, almost day one in some cases. We had this recruiting visit and this dad was in my office and I was telling him what I do. I was telling him, hey, I don't have anything to do with the play on the field. This is what I do. It's everything to help the player off the field. And he told me, look me in my eyes, he said, oh, you're like the uncle. You're the uncle of the program. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm the uncle of the program. But you have a great opportunity to mentor these young men because they know that the relationship they build with the person in this role has nothing to do with them on the field. And so they may often ask questions about relationships, religion, finance, you name it, careers, whatever, but you become a mentor to those players. So mentorship is another impact that this role has for the players in your program. Number three is belonging. And that's providing the same exact value to all players. Now, I've been around first round picks. I've been around guys who've won individual awards. I've been around champions, all that. But this position, I value and respect everyone for who they are. Who are you as a person? Not necessarily what you provide on the field. Now, I want them all to, if their goal is to go to the league, I know that's not going to happen for everybody, but I want to be there to push them towards their goal, to help them with their goals. But I also want them to come to my office and know that, hey, I can be me in that office. I can sit down and this stuff that's going on in the field, this stuff that's going on off the field, this person values me because of me. So you get to provide belonging to players in the role. Accountability, number four, accountability. You get to hold them accountable. They're going to come in that mentorship, belonging, as we talked about earlier, they're going to share a lot of their goals. They're going to share a lot of things that they want to do in life. I want to do this. I'm doing this. Hey, look, check me out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. You get to hold them accountable. Are you being the person that you said you wanted to be? I love that part of the role. Love it. The next one is communication clarity. You have the opportunity to clarify the communication between the coaches and the players. A lot of times, upstairs, downstairs, right? The coaches are upstairs, the players are downstairs in the locker room. And sometimes that communication between both can get a little, it's like playing popcorn, right? It can get a little, cloudy. That's a good word, right? So you're able to bring clarity. I'm able to come to the head coach or coach and say, hey, this is what happened, or this is what this young man was trying to say. Vice versa. I can go in the locker room and say, hey, this is what your coach was saying. This is, what will happen because of this. And so you get to provide a communication clarity because you're spending time with both. My schedule is like a staff meeting in the morning, then breakfast with the player. So it's almost like this: staff time, player time, staff time, player time. So you're getting all this communication constantly. And now you have the opportunity to clarify. Problem solving. This person in the role, the right person in the role, will solve problems. No, they have to. You have to. And for me, it was a lot. Things would come up. And one thing I always do with head coaches, I knew head coaches who are watching this, I know you have a lot on your plate. I knew my head coach had a lot on their plate. So I would problem solve some things. There were some things that I could get done without telling the head coach, like, hey, I don't need to go to him for everything, but I do need to inform him of what's going on. And so let's say, so-and-so practice about to happen and so-and-so's tire went out. Okay, I got a problem solve. I don't have time to run in the head coach's office and say, hey, head coach, so-and-so's tire is flat. No, we need to solve that problem. Be it however we need to solve it, we need to solve it, right? So that happens in this role. You have to be a problem solver if you're in this role. There's a lot of things that are going to happen daily. And all of it's not like, astronomical or grave or whatever, but they're just they're problems. There's problems, right? Somebody iPad locks up. Somebody does this, like somebody forgets their locker code, whatever. It's just little problems. You got to solve them. And thankfully, I've worked with great staffs and other support staff who helped me with this. And kind of tied in with problem solving is critical thinking. You have to think critically as you problem solve and as you're in the role, right? So you have to think about, like all these things, right? How do we, if it's communication or if you go about this or critically think, how do I communicate this to my head coach? For me, it was like, hey, let me give him this much. This is the meat of it. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time. Hey, coach, I want to let you know this is going on. I got it covered. Here is the plan, right? Critically thinking about the plan. So you can problem solve, but there has to be a plan afterwards, right? You have to communicate that with coaches, staff, administration, whatever it may be. And so that critical thinking piece is close to problem solving. You have to think about, okay, I've solved the problem now, but what are the ramifications afterwards? And critically think of how to walk through those things, good or bad. Situational awareness, that kind of goes in with the problem solving and critical thinking, very, very close. But you have to be aware of the situation, be it a player, be it players, a position group, a coach, the campus, right? Socially, things that are going on, you have to be aware, because I think a lot of people, players and coaches, sometimes can just get in their lane and, so focused that they kind of forget about the situation. So in this role, you get to provide situational awareness. Hey, coach, I just want to let you know, remind you, so-and-so, this is going on in their life, calling them out right now probably ain't the best thing to do, or player, hey, this freshman, I know the way, you're talking to a freshman or a player who's leading freshman, hey, the way you talking to these guys, it ain't gonna work. Just tell them how to get it done. They're not you, different group, different things. So just understanding situations and being aware. And then the last one is creating a safe space. This is very, very important for the players. This role has to be a safe space. Now, this was a little toggle in my career because, there's things that players share with you that I've been in rooms where it's like, hey, coach has to know this, right? And there's some stuff it's like, coach needs to know this, but he doesn't need to know this. This doesn't impact, different things or what he needs to know. So there has to be a safe place. There's an in-between because you don't want to lose trust with those players. There's certain situations where you have to pick. There's a situation where I had to pick, hey, do I want the trust of the players or the trust of the coach? And it's tough. But if you lose the trust of the players, you cannot function in this role. And so I had to find that middle ground. I had to speak with coaches and say, hey, this is a safe space. I was always on coach's role, and that was always tough for me. And what I mean by coach's role is my office was always where all the coaches were. And so, I work at one university where people would come to my office and they had this, one of the coaches would always come in and, hey, everything okay? And it's like, that's coach, you can't do that. You cannot do that. And so you have to ensure that this role is a safe space. And I know with the transfer portal, there's a lot of people on edge and a lot of people like, I don't know about that. I need to know everything. Everything is not bad. Everything is not transferring. Trust me. But they just want a lot of time get stuff off their chest. And so this role, whoever's in this role for you, head coach, and whoever is listening that may not be a head coach and wants to be in this role, you have to create a safe space. When we talk about player development impacting your program, this part with the players is the greatest impact this role has in your program. All right, we're going to take a break for an ad. This podcast is brought to you by Beyond the Field Program, LLC. Beyond the Field is providing an all-inclusive player development service. The service includes staff consulting, program evaluation, and program creation. Please head to btfprogram.com and click on our service tab to find out more. We help you help athletes create generational impact. All right, now let's get back into, the impact of player development on your program. Okay, the second part, we talked about players. The second part is the program and staff. The positions I've held were inside the football program. So I was director of player development for football. So I was in the program. I was on the football budget. I was in football staff meetings. So I had to find a way for this role to impact the program. Okay. In this position, you're in the crux of providing benefits for the players and the staff. I talked about that a little bit in players. This role allows for someone to understand the staff and the players very well. Now, with this understanding, the congruence and unification of both groups is forged and can be forged by the person in this role. Now, let's go over some of the greatest impacts that this role has for the program and staff. Number one, anticipatory skills, opportunities. I work for Coach Tom Herman at the University of Houston, and he had this quote, 90% of discipline is anticipation. And so once he said it in a meeting, I was like, wow, it might have been 80%, but it was a high number. But I was like, wow, like I thought about back when I was a teacher, I was like, man, I knew what my students were going to do. I remember I was like, he's going to do this or she's going to do this. Let me prepare this to get that out of the way. And so this role has anticipatory skills because you get to spend so much time around the players. You get to see them when they're up. You get to see them when they're down. You get to see them when they're in the middle. You get to see them when they're angry, frustrated. You get to see how they respond to this, how they respond to that. And so you can anticipate some things. One thing, one creator that talks a lot about anticipatory skills is Craig Rochelle, and he has a podcast. He talks about it. He dives in anticipatory skills. It was so good that I created an anticipatory skills form to where literally I would write down deals and say, okay, this is what can happen and this is how we can respond to it. But the person in this role can see things coming for the head coach or the staff. Like let's say, for instance, I will use this example in a recruiting aspect, recruiting visit. We had a player that was there. Our coaches are just diving into building relationships with the players at the time. And I was asked in a meeting, one of the head coach asked me, said, hey, Ed, do you think we're going to get this kid? And I told him honestly, I said, Coach, I don't believe so because the dad is not interacting with you. And I saw that the dad was kind of pulling off, kind of, staying away, whatever. It was kind of weird. He wasn't interacting with anybody. He was on his phone the whole time, just phone the whole time. So I thought, hey, I think he's talking to other schools. He's talking to he's just on his phone the entire time, just really, really to himself. And so that was my anticipatory skill. So I'm thinking once I said that, I get with the recruiting guy and I say, hey, we might need to start looking for another quarterback because this dad's not engaged and this kid values his dad's opinion. We didn't get the kid, but we were prepared. And so that is one way that this role can help the program and the staff. Academic support. I have been blessed to work with some incredible academic professionals at every university I was at. It's a lot of y'all. I wish I could name all y'all, but you know who you are. And so in this role, I was able to be a liaison with the academic staff. So basically taking what the academic staff had for us and then taking the culture and the expectation of the head coach and bringing it to the academic staff and saying, this is what we need. This is how these things go. I was very fortunate at one university to create the academic meeting for our coaches. And, I went with the academic staff and said, hey, this is probably the best way for our coaches to retain that information. So that's another thing. Now, I was able to do that, but everywhere I was at, I worked with the academic staff. Recruiting support. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I was able to help recruiting. Shout out to my guy, Joel Kozer at Houston. He was the first one to give me a chance to present at a recruiting visit. He said, hey, Ed, do you have something to present? We got some time. We got about 30, 40 minutes. Can you present? So I was able to go up and present to parents. Hey, this is player development. This is the Beyond the Field program. This is what we're going to do for your son when he comes on campus. Okay, this is what we're going to do for him off the field. We're going to engage his personal wellness, community impact, and career development. And that was my first time doing it, but I was able to talk to parents. Parents were really, really into it. So as I'm having these conversations with parents about player development, I'm asking questions about what they want. What do you want out of university? Where do you see your son? What is he thinking? So not only am I able to help recruiting in visits by, talking about player development, but I'm able to retain information from parents and able to then relay it to our staff and our coaches. Got a funny story, real funny story. One time we had this visit where this mom she basically told me straight up, and I'll talk about it a little more in the guide. I don't want to give the entire story, but she's like, hey, I see which position group is around here. My son's not coming here to play a position. I literally go grab the position coach and say, hey, y'all need to change this around. This person needs to go here. She needs to meet him. We need to change this dinner thing. So we do all this stuff while they're taking a nap. We change it around. She's satisfied. He commits. Kid becomes a first round pick. So once again, that's that recruiting support that you provide a program. Operation support. Everywhere I've been, operation needs help. And shout out to the operation professionals out there. I definitely got to give a shout out to Tori Takel and Quentin Jordan. Incredible, two of the best that I work with. Incredible for the player development position. They did an incredible job of giving me what I needed and helping me with that. Maybe I'll do an episode on the relationship between operations and player development, or maybe I'll interview Tori or Q. We'll see, but they're incredible people. Anyway, back to the point. Operation support. This role will always help operations. Operations does a lot. There's a lot to handle with a football program. And so you're able to provide support. I've done bus checks. I've done I've done tickets for players and staff. I went and had to go do runs. I've set up stuff for visits or coaches' offices or this or that. Just operations does it all. So you're able to support them. You're able to support the actual running of the program daily. Another one, as I spoke about earlier, you're able to provide insight for coaches. So I told you a story quickly about the recruiting trip. But here's another story where you're able to talk to a coach and say, hey, coach, so-and-so came into my office. He lost somebody in his family. And now you share that with a coach, and a coach says, okay, let me reach out to him. Let me, figure out how to communicate him. Let's see if he's prepared to practice. But you're able to provide insight for coaches. I had another story where one of our freshmen came in and he was kind of down, in the dumps. He was a really, really, really good player in high school, but he was at a position group we were loaded at. And the coach was like, man, I can't. He was just talking to the staff meeting. I can't get it out of him. And I pulled the coach aside after the staff meeting. I said, Coach, this player has more community service than your entire group combined, and he's only been here 6 months. And so he told that to the player in the in the position meeting, excuse me. He started off by saying, hey, I want to shout out so-and-so. He has more community service hours than this entire room. The kid lit up and actually had a great practice that day. And we built his confidence back up from that moment. But that's a thing that this role was able to do. I was able to provide insight for the coaches because of that. And then insight on team morale. You're able to kind of feel the team. Hey, coach, especially fall camp. Fall camp, coach, we got to do something. It's getting a little tight. They want to go out. They want to go, to this. They want to go do that. They want to go to the swimming pool. They want to go play top golf. They want to do this. You have insight on team morale. One time I was around the players a lot. They told me, Coach, we want to go to a water park. We want to go to a water park. We want to go to a water park. And so I went to those who needed to know that. And I said, hey, I don't know what we have planned. I know we got this plan for the players, but they want to go to a water park. Well, unfortunately, that advice was not taken. We went to another thing and we had a big scuffle at practice. Like, it was bad. And it was kind of the tension of the players feeling like they weren't being heard. And it was a little, disappointing for me because I had expressed that to our staff and we went another way. But that is another thing. And the right person in this role, and if you, pay attention to what they're telling you, they have insight on team morale. Another thing this role is able to talk about is the state of the program. And so the head coach and the coaching staff and other support staff, they're so busy creating these incredible models of how the program will move forward. And so you're able to see it from another position. You're able to hear it from the players. And so I'm able to have a meeting with the head coach and say, hey, coach, head coaches bring me in and say, hey, Ed, tell us about the program. What do you think? Hey, coach, here's the state of the program. These things are really, really positive. The players are enjoying this. These are some things that we can probably tweak, give a little bit here, but you're doing well. Now, once again, I don't ever want to go in and tell the head coach, I know what he's doing. I've never been a head coach, but you're able to provide some value to the state of a program for the head coach. And this role, and now, number one, as I said earlier, the player impact is the most important, but the program impact is a close second, not a 1A, 1B, but a close second, because there's so much that this role, so much in my experience, I was able to help our program, our staff, our head coach, because of the relationship, the mentorship, and everything I had with the players. The last part is external relationships. There are a lot of people who engage the student athletes in the program daily. People inside the athletic department, the university, and those outside supporters and partners. Now, head coaches, I don't have to tell you this. You already know that your plate is full. It's full. You come in, you look at the schedule, you got to be at this golf deal, you got to be here, you got to be here, you got to talk to this person, media's coming here, this, that. You have so much to deal with on the daily. The right person in this role allows for some of those responsibilities to be relieved from your load. Now, in my role, and I was thankful I did work for coaches that did allow for me to take some things off their plate. Now, once again, you're the head coach. You got to say everything. I can't take everything off your plate, but you can delegate things. It's already enough for you to run the program and win games. And let's be honest, I'm coming from a college football background standpoint. You ain't got much time to win games. You just don't. Let's keep it a buck. Okay. So you already had that pressure that I got to come in and I got to win now. This position can help you delegate some of the commitments so you can focus on putting your best team out there during the season. Let's go into greater detail about the impact this role can have with external relations of the program. Now, I talked a little bit about this part with academics, but in this role, I was a liaison for a lot of stuff. Liaison to housing, liaison to academics, liaison to the university, liaison to community groups, liaison to companies, whatever it may be. But that was perfect. I enjoyed that. you have this person in the role, you get the right person in this role, they can be a liaison and help so much in your program. They can relieve a lot. Yeah, there are certain things that you as a head coach, you have to go to, but there are some things that you can send a representative. You can't send a coach. Maybe you can't send this person. You can't send somebody for recruiting because you got to recruit, especially with the transfer portal. You got to recruit every single day, every single moment, as you already had to. So you can send someone else. This role is that person that can go. So being a liaison to a lot of external relations in the program is really valuable for this role. Parent, family, communication, and engagement. Somebody that is speaking to the parents. Now, these parents are dropping their babies off and they want to know. I know they big and they may be 6'7", 6'4", but that's still mama's baby now. And so there has to be someone who communicates and engages with the families. Now, a lot of the parent contact begins in the recruiting phase. So a lot of these, young men, in my experience, we started recruiting when they're 14 years old, and you get them when they're about 17 or 18 on campus. And so in that newcomer transition, when they sign after signing day with all the balloons, all the cake, and all the different hats and shirts and whatever they do, shout out to those players. That's a great accomplishment in their life. But after they sign, there's a lot of stuff. They got to fill out the application. They got to do this. They got to do that. And you're spending a lot of time with the parents. And then there's a newcomer orientation. And that's where you see the parents again. You're seeing them, spring ball, official visits, all this. But the newcomer orientation is different because Mama Bear is dropping her baby off. Papa Bear is dropping his baby off. Like they dropping their son off and they are leaving. And so it's a little different. And that newcomer orientation can bring some, different emotion and feels to the moment. And so you have opportunity there to share where I've been at every school I've been. I've shared my number, I've shared my email, shared my social handles, and told parents, call me. If you got a question, call me. And I had parents, most likely they're going to hit you up in that with newcomers first 2 months. It's the first time they haven't had their son in the house and they just want to make sure everything's good. But you're there to communicate with them. You're going to see them. There's going to be a family practice in the fall. You're going to see them the first game of the year, and then everything's good. Now, this parent engagement is not only for the newcomers. You have some players that have been on a team where mom and daddy wants to continue to know. Their family still wants to know what's going on, right? And so you're able to engage with them. Now, it's a little different because you don't meet them in recruiting. Wherever I've been, I've come in the program and those players are already there, those relationships, those parents are already set. I get to meet them at spring ball. I get to meet them at games. One university I worked for, we would have this family time the night before a game where our players could spend time with their family in the lobbies. I always went out there. That was like that day, that was my number one objective. Let me go meet these parents and get to know these parents. And I was glad I did that because at the time when we would travel on the road, you see parents at home games. Hey, how you doing, Mr. So-and-so? How you doing, Mr. So-and-so? Hey, grandma, how you doing? Hey, cousin, how you doing? Uncle, how you doing? Auntie, how you doing? And so you're able to be that person that families get to know that the players. So you become that person that these players' families get to know and trust. And I've enjoyed it. I still talk to some of these family members, on Facebook. They've seen my family grow. And so it's awesome. But head coaches, you get somebody in that role who can engage. And this is the perfect role for someone to engage parents and family. Community engagement is another one. I talked about it a little bit in the liaison part, but you get to get someone who engages the community in this role. There's a lot of community work being done around the world. This role helps with that. There's going to be a lot of community work in your community, in your local community. And I love the community work because the local community should be or can be your greatest fans. They're going to be your supporters. And you want to replicate that support by supporting them. You want to show them, hey, I see you got our back. We got your back. And so this role allows for, someone to go out and build those relationships. I was able to go to school districts. I was able to go to different organizations and bring players or create those relationships, invite them to practice, invite them to games, different things like that. But this role allows for a lot of community engagement with the external part. Corporate engagement. So, companies, these players are going to be done playing and the numbers are low. And I never really told players that, but they should know everybody not making it to the league. Now, everybody thinks they're going to make it to the league. They're not. What I used to tell players all the time when I was a high school coach, signing a scholarship is not one step closer to the NFL. It's just one step away from high school football. So you want to make sure you have things prepared for these players when they leave. So corporate engagement was huge in our career development piece, and you're meeting a lot of people. People want to be associated with the winner, especially that logo. It went a long way in communities. So I was able to go out, build partnerships, get externships, start building on internships, start building on career placement opportunities for our players. But that's the engagement that was needed for our players in our program. And this role is able to do that. Campus engagement and communication. Engaging the campus is huge. You're going to have a lot of resources and great professionals on your campus, a lot of great organizations. There are great works being done on the universities around the world. And so you get someone who's able to facilitate that. You know, how do we engage the campus? How do we engage this organization? One thing that's really cool, the 3 places I've worked, we always had a student practice or a student organization practice. How do we get them here? How do we communicate this? How do we market this? Where do we find the students? And so this role, that was what I did. Let me go find the students. They're here. Okay, let's put flyers here, or let's meet them on social media here, or let's go to this game. Let's go to this event. Let's invite them. Let's get free shirts and meet them here. And so, you know, that's one thing this role can do, and that is engage the campus. And it is an incredible part of this role. The last one for your external relations is alumni engagement and communication. This is one of the most overlooked areas of programs that I've seen, even when I was a high school coach. The alumni engagement has to happen because that is your most organic supporter. Your former players, a lot of your former players love their experience at your university, at your campus. And so you have to engage them. I've been fortunate where I've been to be that person, and I have enjoyed alumni engagement. The stories, first of all, are incredible. Now they go on for a while. You got to book some time, but the stories are incredible. But they really just want to help out. Now you got to set some guidelines because you got some passionate people like, when I was here, we did this, and you listen, but you set guidelines because once again, in this role, I work for the head coach. Head coaches that are watching, this role works for you. And so I would set that boundary, but the alumni engagement is great because they're really, really bought in. And so this role, this is another piece of the external relations impact that this role can have for you. Please find you someone. If you don't have somebody now, or you have somebody in the role, make sure that they are engaging the alumni. The alumni are able to come around the players and help them during their time. They're able to help them. The biggest thing to get to help them is when they're done playing. A lot of these alumni own businesses or they hire people or they have connections. You gotta engage them because they are willing and ready to help. Now, that's all for today. I know that was a lot, but I'm really passionate about it because I know player development can and will impact your program. As stated earlier, be on the lookout for my head coach's guide to player development ebook. Be on the lookout. It should be published soon, possibly this week. I look forward to the next podcast in which we talk about scenario 1 that a head coach will see in player development, which is creating player development. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you spending your valuable time with me. God bless you. Have a great day. Go out and create generational impact. Don't wait. Create that generational impact today.